Hello, everybody. It's Holger Mueller here from Constellation Research, here with my partner in crime, Martin Fischer. Hey, Martin, how are you?
Pretty good. Hi, Holger. Nice to meet you. Yeah, and hello to the west coast of the United States.
Yeah, hello from San Diego, California. You're in Stuttgart, Germany, a little colder. But hey, we're going to talk about the World Cup, right?
What kind of World Cup?
The one they call
skiing.
football or soccer or football. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about TechEd 2022, just concluded, hybrid event. Everything goes hybrid, right? With some local in-person things in Las Vegas. I didn't make it to Las Vegas, was busy here anyway. You didn't make it either, so we're watching from the fences. First impression, Martin?
First impression, good that there was an on-site crowd, even if it was a very small one. So I've heard around 1,000 people on site that made the keynotes much better. I think that so even for watching them remotely, it makes a better atmosphere, at least for me, if there is some kind of an audience, even if the audience wasn't that much interactive, I think. But I think it makes also a difference for the speaker, and you feel the atmosphere even if you watch the video. So that was my very first impression. And actually, I think last year I was complaining about the keynotes. I'm quite sure that I did that. This year, I think, I liked the keynotes. Also, actually, there were two keynotes. There was a more technical keynote, developer-related keynote by Jürgen Müller mainly, and a big team around. And yesterday there was the so-called business application keynote with introduction from Thomas Sauer-Essig, and then most of the moderating on stage did Philipp Herzig. He is Senior Vice President Cross Application.
Interesting title, yeah.
Cross integration topic, something.
He did a good job.
Cross and integration, very good job. I liked actually both, and I also liked the separation that we had all the business application stuff apart from the real tech stuff. And there were announcements, there was live coding, there were demos, there were customers on stage. Actually, I liked it.
Right. No, I think it was a good format too. I mean, everything's hybrid these days. It was good that the SAP finally had a lot of announcements. I mean, so TechEd beat Sapphire time factor 3-4 in terms of new things which are happening. So, which I think is a good thing. So SAP is picking up steam, and I think it was good to not have the one keynote together, but give the technology side like a 24-hour news cycle or so to digest the technology news, and then talk about how the business applications are using it. So I think that was a smart format.
Yeah, it was a very smart format. I fully agree, and I think by announcement, TechEd was at least doubling last TechEd and Sapphire together, in my impression at least. So there were that big news last time. Even now, I mean, some stuff like embedded steampunk was already published before, but there was a bigger announcement there. So before there was only some blogs, I think.
So your number one announcement, your number one takeaway, what was the biggest thing for you?
I mean, the biggest thing on day one, and that also had got most of the room time-wise in the keynote, was the announcement of SAP Build. So I wouldn't call it a new low-code, no-code offering, because it's more or less an integration of several existing tools, and don't know if we should call it rebranding or whatever, recycling of an already existing name somehow. For me, and of course I'm biased, full disclosure here, as I'm working for an SAP partner with also a low-code, no-code platform. So
look up Martin on LinkedIn.
yeah, right. I think we are allowed to say that it's Neptune software. But I think in total, they did a much better job in messaging, I think, because last year also low-code, no-code took a big part in the keynotes. And there they were always talking at a developer conference about citizen developers. And now it was more also addressing the IT folks. That's clever, and I think that's also the right way to talk about that platforms. It shouldn't be a thing where IT and business departments are fighting with each other about if it's good or not. They should rather use it as a way how they can work closer together and get things more efficient done. So I think from that perspective, the messaging was better, I think, and also the tools which they combined just make sense.
I agree with you. Like the low-code message was for the first time fully understood there with the rationale. Everybody's becoming a software company. There's not enough developers to build all that. It was the first time that SAP really gave a part of that, and shows that for SAP to do something right, they can't just acquire something. It has to be embedded into the existing application portfolio. It has to be integrated. Customers expect things like single sign-on and security, and it has to run all the platforms, has to be certified. And most importantly, SAP has to do some cleaning up in regards of redundancies and other attempts which happened in the past, right? So I think they got a good bundle there together. And maybe for me to go to the next thing, which was my takeaway, is like SAP is really cleaning up things, bringing stuff together, which is hard, right? So an example was like on the portal side, right? There was work zone and there was Launchpad, right? And there was two different portal concepts. Now we have another new portal concept, right? Which in the demo they called Start, right? And it's not called SAP Build Work Zone, right? But a vendor like SAP should have one portal across this product. So I think that's happening, and that's a good thing for customers ultimately. But it takes time for all the products to be on that. And in the meantime, when you're doing technology adoption on a product, you're not building functionality. So it's a long, long way to go there. So your thoughts
of course
on SAP coming together?
But I think they actually realized that there's a lot of potential in all the tools they already have. Before that, there were so many kind of loose ends which were not finding together, and now at least what they presented so far, they combine it, and cannot judge yet how far they are already in all that integration. I think the product itself needs to also get a bit more mature, but I think the direction is a good one, and that's a good message for SAP customers, also for the BTP. I'm sometimes a bit skeptic about the whole BTP. We were often discussing that in that podcast here as well, but I think there's now a bit more added value here.
So BTP is getting media in general. We also get used to it, which comes to the most important thing that I see in BTP actually, which comes back to Christian Klein is now CEO for 3 years. Time flies, I think, right? And he went on this listening tour and he heard like integration is a big problem. I didn't like to say some constructive things. I didn't like that Jürgen Müller only spoke about integration at the very end. I think he needs to start with integration and say, look, this is a never-ending job, right? We made this progress. We are planning to do this. This is a certain platform. I think they did better on the next day in the business keynote where they started with integration, which I think is good. But the integration part is still a significant challenge, and it will never stop, right? And for SAP to acknowledge that and go to a regular cadence of communication, what is coming, what is integrated, what you have to integrate yourself, will be only helpful for them.
Yeah, that's true. But just on day one keynote, putting the integration part, there was also this demo with getting a Swagger or an Open API specification.
Not saying it wasn't there. It came at the very end, right?
Yeah, it came at the very end.
Parts, And why is integration at the end of the BTP? It should be at the start.
And I think that's also a good thing that shows again that SAP somehow applies more to the common standards in the industry, and maybe get even more a bit rid of that not invented here thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, right? Generally, I think the relationship with open source has gotten better also. But then my concern was a little bit during the pre-briefings is that the typical pro code ABAP developer would be a little concerned about the announcement of SAP Build. But I think they managed that well in terms of showing that it's another option. It's at the beginning. You can still use your development tools. They're bringing together the cloud environments, right, for ABAP. It's one consistent one. But things like the DIN-Pro are going away, right? So I'm sure there's going to be some repercussions. Some people are not going to like it because there's so much investment which has been put into these. And you can't just say, oh, now we do everything clean in the cloud. We don't mess up the core. Here's the way to customize it, right? So SAP has to find a holistic way for customers, which they want to move ultimately to S/4HANA, and find a way on the technology platform to enable that and make that somehow, not that I know where the magic bullet is, somehow work, right? What are your thoughts on the ABAP side?
Yeah, I mean, I did, and we will also publish this episode on the Coffee Corner Radio podcast again. And the last episode was an interview with Jens Weiler, one of the architect of the cloud ABAP language stuff. So we got really deep there. Yeah, you are fully right. The ABAP which we see there has nothing to do with the ABAP from 5 years ago, I think, or if you are on the old business suite releases, that's a completely different story. Even I mean, there also with the whole CDS, that common core data service stuff, the whole syntax, all the artifacts you are using there is a completely different thing to what people know, that there's a steep learning curve to do for the whole ABAP community. But I'm with you there. I was also a bit afraid that they might lose the ABAP developers because of the of the room for the low code no code story, but they did a good job there. And I think that ABAP Steampunk thing, I mean, ABAP the importance of ABAP for SAP just got underlined with that release, I think, because for ABAP-based extensions, customer extensions, BTP is out of the game. That will be done on the S4 stack in future for sure, because it doesn't, at least for customers, for partners, it's a different story. But for customers, it doesn't make much sense to do that on an ABAP Steampunk on BTP. They will do it embedded on the S4 HANA stack itself, but with a clear separation of custom code and SAP coding. And yeah, that's I think a great concept and very good news also for the ABAP crowd out there. But the message is clear: you need to upskill if you want to stay in the ABAP space.
But it's moving to the cloud. Last takeaway from my side is UI never stops. We haven't heard a long time from UI from SAP, right? But a new UI is coming. The demo was a little weak of like icons flying over from one to another. Is it the UI? Blue icons. I'm sure they spent a lot of time and money to make sure that these blue icons are correct from any aspect you can think of. But UI never stops. It's like fashion. I think you need 2 UI releases per year. For the summer and for the winter, or for spring, or for fall, as fashion really does it. So it's good to see that SAP Fiori Horizon makes a revive to the SAP UX efforts. What's your view on that?
I'm not really the UX and design guy, so I rather don't comment on that one. But
stay away from it. Oh, what's wrong with flowers? Fiori flowers.
No, I mean in general, usability and UX is of course important, and I mean SAP still has to fight with its reputation of the old DIN-Pro UIs, but I'm not the one who can comment on the design itself, I think.
What do you forget? What else? What else did you take out?
One announcement wasn't part of the keynote, if I remember right, but I think it's a very important one for the developers. That's the part that SAP starts to open source the cloud application programming model called CAP. So that's Java and mainly JavaScript implementation there. And I think that's a very good news for the whole community. I mean, I'm not a CAP developer, to be honest, but I'm following it a bit, and I know some very skilled people who are using it since years, and they love it, and they fought for open sourcing it, and I think that's a good thing. We see that with OpenUI5, for example, with the JavaScript front end framework SAP developed and open sourced it partly. There's a huge adoption, I think, and the community contributes back to the product somehow and to the whole community, and I think. If that's also possible for the for backend kind of framework technology, that's a good thing for SAP as well. And they were asked for that last years, and they kind of promised that they will open source it. So now they started to do it. There's a roadmap, of course. Community would love to see it faster, as usual, but there's a start at least.
Right. No, I totally agree. Open source is one. It's good for SAP to listen to it. It's good for SAP to contribute it. I think more eyes and ears will come to it with that. Might be even partners using things on it and contributing. We'll have to see how the whole dynamic is. But you can only get that dynamic once you're in open source. So I think it's great for SAP to move it there. It's the right move. And we both know there's a number of very engaged community members who will spend a lot of nights and weekends.
They already
did. Being allowed to contribute.
They already did.
they did already, but they will continue even more. I think we'll see much more innovation, right? So, which is something which they have to manage, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Other than that,
did we miss anything else?
On day 2, Google was part of the keynote. So SAP. Maybe the last years, my impression was a bit that Microsoft is the most liked partner within the hyperscalers. So at least in Germany and Europe, we see that also with Azure adoption. So Google, how is it called? G Suite, I think.
Google Workplace too, like another workplace integration. So.
And what else?
That was good, right? And then we had the Apple love ode on the first day. And they didn't mention the Android SDK, which is like really, really bad, right? Number 1 operating system in the world. Like everybody else who has to build for the whole mix of computer versions. They're doing iOS again, and then there will be features in iOS which you don't have in Android. Don't make this mistake again, SAP.
But they talked about it in day 2 keynote.
Day 2, yes, but it had to be in day 1.
For sure. I was also a bit
day 2 wasn't day 1, and you can't do it the other way around either. You can't say, we're doing Android and we're not doing iOS, right? It's not like I'm calling favorites here, right? There's 2 mobile operating systems. If you're large enough, SAP with global customer source, you have to support them both, and you have to support them lockstep, because there shouldn't be different first and second generation or class citizens who have a better UX or worse UX, right?
But I'm still not that convinced from the native.
Sorry, something you said Google too often, I guess.
Okay. So your Alexa is answering questions now. Hey Google.
It's smart. It knows it can't answer the question if it's in airplane mode. That's how long I haven't turned this phone off.
Interesting. Well, and sorry for my voice. What I just wanted to say is, I'm still not that convinced about that native app development story. It makes sense for a vendor like SAP, but most probably there might be some apps which don't need customizing, but many customers especially if you are going to mobile scenarios, need to adapt somehow the apps, because you don't have that much space on that, and maybe you need some additional fields or whatever. And yeah, first thing, there's, at least I don't know anyway, how you can adapt shipped apps for customers. And the other thing is, I mean, the whole world knows now that there are not enough developers. I think it's not doable for end customers in the end to have 2 teams for mobile app development. So I'm missing a bit the hybrid.
This is going to be going on forever, right? So do you have an overarching platform? I used to be in the platform camp, now I'm in the native camp. So not sure where this will end out, right? This is going to be religious war, like all the data in one place, or federate the data, right? We'll never get the outcome to that.
Yeah,
people are
that's
on
true.
one side of it. Yeah,
Very
good. But good for SAP to think about, not forget mobile. And mobile was part of the presentation. Everybody has a smartphone, so that's the way how to build modern applications, next generation applications, I call it.
Yeah,
cool. 21 minutes in. Anything important? So overall impression?
Yeah, overall impression. Let's talk about the conference setup maybe for a minute. Yep. Of course, it's clear that the planning of an on-site event was a hard task also this year, because I assume they started maybe a year ago, or at least more than 10 months ago. There was the whole situation on a global scale in terms of the pandemic not clear. But I really hope that we get back on-site events. I can understand that SAP has a better outreach in terms of education for all the sessions if they do it virtually. That's fully understandable. But I attended 2 or 3 conferences this year, and the whole networking discussion part is just completely missing. If you sit at home in front of your computer and just listen.
Or you have to do hybrid network offerings, right? So we know in the pandemic there were some good fun things which people were doing. So
yeah, but I think, or my personal expression is that never worked. Not even half the way.
It's different, but it's better than having nothing. And I mean that for the analysts, I don't know if everybody had to say that this analyst play a virtual reality kind of like place where to go to and so on. Fine, I agree. People are happy to meet in person, but I think it's also okay for vendors to experiment in the middle and don't go back exactly the same way how it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, that's not what I'm asking for. But for sure not. Maybe
I'm getting my video editing here. Talking it not on screen.
No, I mean, maybe it makes sense to kind of cut out the education part somehow and focus on-site networking events. However,
because
they might look
the education part should be ongoing all the time anyway, right? Yeah. Obviously, you have new stuff and people want to get their hands on new stuff, but there's no reason why you can't put that, like their partners Cloudera at this event, at least announcement-wise, why you couldn't say, hey, finish this and get in the Cloudera event, and then bring it back, right? Have a competition, have a hackathon, virtually, not virtually, right? So there's so many things you can do to tie everybody in. But
I mean, they did since the pandemic, they have that Devtoberfest pre-TechEd running, I think, for a month or 6 weeks or something like that. Never managed to participate, but I see that that's moving the community. There are a lot of participants and people get educated, and that's also a very cool thing. So maybe it's just an idea which keeps me kind of thinking that it might make sense to have that separated and focus on interaction on site. And also the partying part is also important for that kind of conference.
Yeah, of course. It's difficult. It's difficult, and try the new thing, maybe do local parties, local events, right? All that has been tried. I think there's room for improvement, but overall I think a positive TechEd, positive SAP event.
Yeah, definitely.
Much less, no disappointment, right? Sapphire, to be honest, I was a little disappointed, but this was a good.
Me too.
Yeah.
No, I in general, thumbs up for sure. And
All right.
yeah.
That rounds
Good.
it up. Here's your your TechEd 2022 roundup and key takeaways. Martin Fischer and Holger Mueller. Thanks for
Yeah.
watching.
Thanks. Bye.